Hello, viewers. I'm SB, and welcome back to Sawayama is the word on the screen, and that's the word I was going to say because my brain is like only 40% functional right now. Here's the thing. It's been a big couple of days. It's been a long couple of days. Not difficult necessarily, just very, very busy. And what I would like more than anything right now is a chance to just chill the fuck out. So, we're going to play some Dungeons and Diagrams. I know this is going to be my favorite game of the whole thing, and it's like I want to I want to dig back into Chip Wizard. I want to actually make some progress in Juicebox Arcade, which means I need to think a little bit about how I approach those puzzles. But for right now, all I want to do is like a little bit of slow my speed brain work, and this is exactly that thing. I like this one very, very much. So, welcome to the Promenade. Okay, we know that this is a wall. In fact, we know all of these are walls, and we know all of these are walls. This one gives us a lot of information to start with. So where else are there walls? Every possible valid treasure room is going to contain this tile at the very least, right? Because this is the furthest up right, this is the furthest down left, this is the furthest up left. Yeah. So we know that. In fact, we also know this. Yeah, those two tiles are definitely part of the treasure room. What else do we know? I guess if we know this is open, then we know these are walls. We know these are open, which means these have to be walls so that there's separation from the treasure room. We still don't exactly know which columns. It could be these. It could be this column or it could be this column to complete it. I guess we know this is open. Not that that's hugely meaningful. I guess we know this has to be a wall, though, in order for there to be separation between the hallway and the treasure room, which tells us that that's the treasure room. And thus means that this must be a wall. This is open. So there's a single tile in here that is open connecting these two hallways. It's this one, because we already have all the walls placed in this column. And then there's one more wall there. That was remarkably easy. I don't think these are sorted by difficulty, but then again, like, it's basically impossible to sort puzzles by difficulty because different things are difficult to different people depending on sort of like the intuitive function of their minds and the way they understand the puzzles. And it's like you can give the same set of instructions to 100 different people and they'll understand it in at least 30 different ways. Okay, this is definitely open, which means all of those are closed, and this is just the Nightmare Hall. This must also be open, and as such, this must also be open. And then we have two walls for this column. I guess they could both be adjacent to the monster. I wonder if this Etten here, if the faces are supposed to be people, because they're like remarkably detailed and people-like, considering, you know, the fidelity of the graphics and the rest of the game within a game. So I do wonder if this is like an in-joke. So we have one more wall in this row, and it's got to be the wall that is on the outside of the treasure room. So again, some things we know about the treasure room. These tiles are definitely a part of it. I think that might be all that we know about the treasure room at this point. What else do we have? Most of these tiles are wall, but not all of them, sadly. It's so hard to work with most. I guess actually we do know exactly which rows the treasure room is in, which means we know that these must also be part of the treasure room. 3 of these are wall, 3 of those are wall. It's interesting that there's only one wall tile in the 7 spaces remaining in this column. I don't think it tells us anything right now, though. So the rest of the treasure room is either right here or right here. It really does tell us like precious little. Okay, here's something. I guess we know this is a wall. Because if these spaces are treasure room, then this has to be a wall for, like, we know that only one of these two is wall, and that means only one of these two can be wall, which means in order to fill out the row, that has to also be wall. And only one of these two can be wall for exactly the same reasons. So these three must be then. That's almost information. That's information adjacent. And we won't play Dungeons and Diagrams the whole episode, but I definitely want to do some more because I like this one a lot. I'm a big fan of, like, you know, nonograms and Sudoku with special rules and like this kind of grid logic puzzle. I don't think I've done too much of that kind of stuff on the channel because I don't know how I would. Not that there's no audience for it. If this kind of thing is your kind of thing at all, check out Cracking the Cryptic is the name of the YouTube channel. They do some really, really cool grid logic puzzles and also occasionally play puzzle video games. And they have a demeanor that I find just like extremely delightful. So we know that most of the tiles along the north wall of the treasure room will be walls, but probably not all of them, right? In fact, no, definitely not all of them. Because there's only 3 wall tiles in this entire row. So the entrance to the treasure room is probably from the north. Ugh, there's so much probably coming off of this, though. All right, I'm sorry. This column, right. We know that these must be open because there's not enough walls for that column for them not to be open. Okay, and then we know there's only one wall left for these 2 spaces. So one of those is open, which means this is not open. The monster's dead end is here. So it could still be that the wall is north of the monster. No, it cannot be. Because if the wall was north of the monster, then that means this corner is a dead end. Which cannot, yeah. So this must be the case. Okay, that's information. We're getting somewhere. This has to be a wall. One of these 2 is a wall, so all of those are open. That tells us this, which is something. It also tells us this, which is more. All of those things are necessarily true. Okay, cool. We can definitely work with that. This row, this could still be the wall, because it could just be that the path wraps up and around. The wall in this column can't be against the roof, because again, it would create a dead end. That means this is open, which tells us these are all walls. And now we know some things. These are both open. So that has to be a wall. There we go. I love dungeons on graph paper. Can you tell that I started playing tabletop RPGs in the early 90s? The false maze of the Minotaur, in that it's not like a very good maze, one would assume. Okay, so the treasure room is in this bottom area, and it's entered... Well, actually, this construction tells us a lot, right? The treasure room must be these tiles, because if it was in... Well, no, that's not true. It could totally be the corner. I was going to say, like, it can't be this space, because then, you know, there would be more open stuff next to it. But it could totally just be the corner. But all of the legal constructions of the treasure room absolutely do contain that tile. And same deal over here. The treasure room necessarily occupies these 2 rows. There really are not a lot of blocks in this puzzle on the whole. There's very few total walls. So we're going to have to do a lot of our deduction from the treasure room positions. Okay, so we know that there are two more open spaces in the vicinity of the treasure to make the treasure room work on this row, which means that the other 5 spaces of the row are 1 open and 4 wall. Does that give us anything that we can work with? Kind of no, right? I will say this. Although this is not a thing we can act on, at least not with the information we have currently, it feels to me like this bottom left corner is probably where this treasure room is, just because there's a 1 in this column. It's very easy for a treasure room to help make a small number. I mean, I say that, but they're all small numbers here, aren't they? Okay, how about this? The 2 in this column. In order for this to be the case, this can't be the case, right? Because if these are the only 2 blocks in this column, it's easy enough for this part to be right because it's part of the treasure room. But if this is an open space, then we either have a 2x2 here or we have a false dead end. So we do need a wall in this position, and only one of the spaces adjacent to the Minotaur in this column are walls, which means these are definitely walls because the Minotaur only has 1 opening. Also, is there a version of this where this can be open? I think the answer is no, right? Because, like, let's say this is the treasure room. I guess that's a valid construction. Spaces that are diagonal are not adjacent to each other under this formulation, so. No, this is not a valid construction because then we don't have a dead end for the Minotaur, right? The very limited number of walls in this column is actually extremely meaningful to us. I think this is the case. I think that has to be true. I'm like 30%, like 30-ish% sure that that's right. Okay. That's interesting. That's something. Again, we know this must be open. And this must be open to prevent us from creating a dead end against the wall here. So all of that is interesting. This could be closed. It doesn't have to be, but it can be. Which is the worst, the worst possible thing. Okay, what else do we get out of that? Do we get anything really? Is it necessarily the case that this treasure room is in the top right corner because of the fact that there's only 1 more wall available here? Yes, right? There's no way for the path to run. This must be the treasure room. There's no way for the path to run through this corner because we know at this point that the treasure room... Well, like, here's a question. Never mind. It doesn't matter. I was going to say, is this a valid formulation if, like, this is the treasure room? And I think the answer is yes, but obviously it can't be a valid formulation in this puzzle in particular because we feel like we've got the walls in this column already. I'm going to admit I'm a little shaky on... I'm not 100% certain this logic's right. I think yeah, whatever. We'll find out if I'm wrong. So 2 of these 3 blocks are actually walls. This could be the entrance to the treasure room and like have it walled off like that. This totally can be a wall. This totally can be a wall. Okay. So all that's left in this row are tiles that are part of the treasure room or tiles that are walls. Which I guess means this is definitely a wall because this tile can't be part of the treasure room. That doesn't really help us with this column. And again, I'm looking at this column and trying to figure out, is it possible for this to be wall? Because if this can't be wall, it gives us the dimensions of the treasure room. This would be a valuable thing to discern the identity of. So if this was the wall, this is an open tile. Like this, let's just draw this and see if we can make sense of it. That could be 4 blocks. Yeah, nothing about that seems impossible to me. I don't think that's impossible. And like the process of doing one of these puzzles is it is 100% about figuring out the things that must be true or must be false. And then every time you find one of those, it gives you more leverage, so to speak, on your next set of could be and could not be. You're always trying to turn could be into is or isn't. I don't know who that's for. I don't know who doesn't, who needs that advice, but hopefully it's useful to somebody. So this row here is interesting. So this is probably the row that enters the treasure room. Right, like that being open. And then it's a hallway that leads up to that. Could be. We only have 2 blocks in, or 2 walls in this row as well. So this is a thing where like the construction probably looks something like this. Right, so we have a snaky path. But we don't really know how that works. Actually, is this the only legal construction for these 2 rows? Hold on a second. I guess you could have a block be up here. Yeah, that's also fine. I was just thinking like, yeah, that works too. There's actually a bunch of ways this could play out. I was thinking like you have to be careful with the corners. Stuff can't dead end in the corners. But even a path that runs through the corner isn't necessarily dead ending because it can just be going around this block like that. So if this is a block, these 3 are blocks. The treasure room runs out like the path runs out of the treasure room like that. That totally works. If this is a block and the treasure room runs out to the west somewhere, that also totally works. Okay, but this row is actually something. Because we can't put this here. Because that would mean that all of this space is open, which obviously is, or all of this row is open. Ah, shit, I was about to say which obviously is bad, but actually it's not necessarily, right? Because if these walls are like this, then those could be 2 hallway entrances into the treasure room. The problem here is that I probably need to notice a place where 2 sets of could/could not be's combine to create a situation where there's only one possibility. I need to be doing a larger, more complicated inference that I am not currently seeing. So we have this row where we only have 5 spaces left and they must contain 4 walls. This can't be right, I think, because this necessarily creates a dead end in the corner. It necessarily creates a dead end in the corner or a 2x2 in the corner. And if this layout can't be correct, it does tell us that this is a wall. I don't think it tells us much more than that, but that is still something. This whole top left corner space, we're like so close to knowing so many things. It feels like trying to work these pieces in concert with each other is probably the path. So like, there is something like this, right, where we make a shape like we had shown earlier, and this is totally legal. The treasure room has 2 exits into the uniform hallway. I guess the thing I'm wondering is if it is necessarily the case that this tile is open. It is, right? Because if this tile is also open, like if we have a situation where the hallway runs up here, and I think this is true no matter how we space this, if the opening is anywhere except on the left, we have a situation where like the corner is going to be a dead end. Yeah, I think we actually know this. I think this has to be true. Which is actually really interesting information. So it gives us those. And if this is open... No, it's still the case that either one of these two could be the direction it moves in next. But yeah, I do think that's the case. So that's really potentially really useful. So we have 5 spaces open here, 2 of which are walls. That's pretty hard to work with. 5 spaces, 3 of which are walls. Okay. This column, I think, now that we know for sure that these 3 are open, now that I'm pretty sure we know for sure that these 3 are open, I think this has to be the wall. Because otherwise, I guess, like, is it still possible for this to be walled off and for the treasure room to be here and a hallway to run up there? I guess it is. I guess that does still look possible. We have enough cells filled in here that we're like we're right on the edge of this. Okay. You know what? I'm realizing this being open means this has to be open for the same reasons as in other places. Can't have a dead end. So this being open means either this is a part of the treasure room or it's a wall. I don't think that necessarily by itself tells us very much, but we do at least know the identity of this tile. Because this could be a wall, this could be the treasure room. And we can absolutely get there by making cell by cell deductions if we have to. I'm going to turn out to have been wrong about all of this. Watch. It's been a while since I've read or heard a version of the Theseus story. Was there a lot of treasure chests in that maze? He was thrown in there as a punishment, not like lured there by the promise of riches, right? Also, why wouldn't the Minotaur just steal all the treasure and leave? I guess I don't know what the Minotaur is doing in the maze in the first version. Is the labyrinth there to keep the Minotaur inside? Or was the Minotaur placed in the labyrinth, you know, to be the danger in the labyrinth for when you throw people in there? Who can say? Probably a lot of people. 2 of these 3 are walls. 4 of these 5 are open. And the situation as we understand it now does not tell us that the wall must be separating the treasure room from the hallway. It could totally be the case. Like, this is still a valid construction, right? And all this being the treasure room. And this being the wall in this row. Pretty sure that's all a valid construction. So we have this thing snakes through here in some way. And we're certain that that is true, because that must be true. but we can't actually place those blocks yet, and because we can't place those blocks, they are not helping us deduce the values of these columns. It sure would be nice, though, if I could. Is there any way to know? At this point, this is valid. This is valid. And this is still valid. All three of those still work. And unfortunately, that means we can't guarantee any block positions. There are 4 possible positions for the top row blocks, 3 possible positions for the bottom row block. Yeah, we just don't know a goddamn thing. Hold on. So this occupies columns 1, 2, and 4. This occupies columns 2, 4, and 5. And this occupies columns 1, 3, and 5. So yeah, there is no column that is guaranteed to lose a block to this arrangement. If all 3 of the possible arrangements had a block somewhere in the same column, we could have used that to narrow things a little bit. I was so hopeful. Could you hear it? Could you hear the hope in my voice? I hate to guess. I really don't want to guess. Okay, let's talk about this row a little bit more. So if this is a wall, we know that it's possible for this to be the wall. Is it actually possible for the wall to be anywhere else in the row? This is a valuable question. The wall can't be here. We know that. Because if the wall's here, then either this is the treasure room and we have this invalid space down here, or this is the treasure room and we have a 2x2 in the corner. So, okay, we know this is open for certain. What about here? If this is the wall, this must also be wall. And then this is the treasure room. And then both of these spaces are open. But also it requires this space to be open so that we don't have a dead end right here. And if this space is open and both of these spaces are open, that's an invalid construction. So this space also cannot be wall. Now it's still possible for this to be wall because this could be the treasure room and this could be hallway space, right? That construction is still valid. So that doesn't give us the identity of this cell, but we're still narrowing things down in a way that I think is useful. Can it be here? Okay, well, we know it can't be here because if this is wall, then that's a dead end that hasn't been filled with a monster. So this is also open. It's definitely one of these 2 spaces. Can it be this space? I think the answer is yes. If it's this space, we have a treasure room here, which means both of these spaces are walls to fill out this row, and that's 100% valid and fine. Yeah, I think either one of these spaces can still be wall, which is a pretty awkward answer. But we got something. We got a little bit more distance there. Is there anywhere else where we can do a little bit of work like that? Either one of these spaces could still be wall, because this could just be, you know, the row wraps around, or the hallway rather wraps around. Only one of these spaces is wall is interesting. Actually, yeah, that's interesting. So we have a column here that has 4 empty spaces, only one of which can be a wall. If the wall is not in these 2 spaces, is there a valid construction? I guess this is valid, and then this is open Yeah. It would require this to also be a wall, which it absolutely can be. Yeah, shoot. I was trying to figure out if it was necessarily possible, if it was necessarily the case that one of these two had to be a wall so that these two both had to be open, which really constrains the possibilities for how the top two rows play out. Okay. We still don't know if this is closed or not, which really sucks, because if we knew what this was, it would tell us what this is as well. Well, sorry, if we knew this was open, it would tell us what this is as well. Oh, actually, no, that's interesting. So if this is open, then this must be open, and then the remaining wall tiles are in two of these three spaces. I don't know, that seems perfectly possible, though. Perfectly possible, not essential. Grr. Very frustrating. Oh, okay, I guess here's a thing we know. This is not a valid construction for the treasure room, right? It's either here or here. No, that doesn't really give me everything, because every tile that's down here either is or isn't. Yeah, we have so many spots where there's like two possibilities and they're completely mutually exclusive. They have no shared information. Three of these 5 spaces are walls. So the 2 spaces that are not walls can be adjacent to each other if they're part of like a zigzag Tetris Z shape hallway. Yeah, like I think this is a totally valid construction. And then like the hallway goes like this, and that's a wall, right? Because again, diagonals are not adjacent. And they haven't really made use of that yet, I don't think, but they totally could at any moment. I think it's valid by the rules. Stupid validity. Okay. We have 3 blocks in this column. There's at least one solution for the top right that has both of these being open. There is at most 1 block in this area. There is, however, a solution that does have 1 block in this area. So there's either 0 or 1 blocks here, which means there's either 1 or 2 blocks here. And it's totally reasonable, right, for this to be a hard wall. Have the hallway just run up alongside it. There's a block in the corner, and it does that snake around thing up here. And then the treasure room to be in the bottom left corner. That's totally valid. If that's the case, just continue working the chain from there. If that's the case, these two are both walls, which makes a lot of sense and keeps this row 100% legal. The block here, the block in this row doesn't even get figured out by that. It totally could be wherever. This is open. That's wall, like we just said. This is probably also wall. Yeah, and then the hallway runs up through one of these two. That's all valid. 2 of these 5 tiles are blocks. This is one of them. And the other one's here. The hallway's running up through there. Yeah. Well, I mean, that does actually seem like a completely valid solution. I guess we don't know for sure. I suppose I was making an assumption here because of the fact that this is generally how these kinds of puzzle games work. But I was totally making an assumption that there is one unique solution to each of the puzzles. It doesn't have to be the case. So this is the treasure room. These are the walls here. We think that is... No, wait, that can't be true. This is true. Which means this has to be a wall. Nope, that's a bad solution because of the dead end. It does save your progress on the puzzle. That's really cool. I actually really appreciate that, and I don't know that I think that's the way it would work if this game were actually made when it claims to have been made. Okay, so we don't know a huge amount of this information. Like, this stuff was all speculation. This stuff is all speculation. Sorry, not that. That part's true. We know this. We don't know this. Sorry, that's true. We don't know that. This was the position we were in, right? Yeah. Gosh, I hope so. Otherwise, we're just going to work for a little bit off of bad information here. So, I think what we just proved is that by actually working it out, is that these two are not the blocks. It could be one of them is, though. And it could be one of these is, and as such, it still can be that this is. Both can and can not. So sadly, we did not we did not actually learn very much. I guess, okay, here's the thing we know. If at least one of these two spaces has to be open, it does rule out some shapes over here. This could still be the block in this column, because this... No, this cannot be the block in this column. Or, yeah, because if this is the block in this column... Oh, no, actually it's fine. This is still legal, right? So the block in the first column can absolutely be in this position. If these two were open, it would make it so these two can't be, and also so these two can't be. And we know that that's not the case. Which is something. Actually, if this is an open space, then it necessitates this being an open space, doesn't it? Because otherwise, like if this is a wall, you're going to get a dead end here, or this has to wrap either left or right, creating an open 2x2. So actually, a thing we did learn for sure is that this space is a block. It doesn't necessarily inform us about the state of any of the blocks adjacent to it, but we do know this is a block. And actually, it does give us this, because we just learned that these two spaces cannot both be blocks. So, okay, that is actually something. This being open means this also has to be open to prevent the creation of a dead end. Which means that we know a lot more about what's going on over here. Two of these three spaces are blocks, and we know that it can't be the case that these two are blocks, because that would create a dead end here. So this space definitely is a block, which means this space definitely is open, which means this space definitely is a block, which means this is the treasure room. And now that we know this is the treasure room, exactly one of these two spaces has to be a block, and it can't be this one because that creates a dead end in the corner. So we learn a lot of useful things from that. These are all open. This is the location of the two blocks in that row. We had to do a guess and check, and I don't feel great about it, but I do think it led us to the answer. So this has to be a wall. Yeah. Yeah, it's not like the most optimal puzzle solving. I do feel better about that. This was very relaxing to me. That was 40 minutes of episode. Let's go do something else for 20 minutes. You know what we haven't looked at again? The 20th Century Food Court. Damn, here we go again. I like the fake Zachtronics that exists within the Zachtronics universe. I also fucking love the aesthetic of this game. Alright, one of the common patterns we see in 20th century food is the need to keep things interesting by varying shape, texture, color, and of course, flavor. Flavor turns out to be a relatively important part of food. The great combinatorial variety made possible by different ingredients was always explored thoroughly. Sometimes too thoroughly. Alright, what are the instructions for this one? So we have some dough. We must fry the dough into puri, or dock first to fry it into popdi. Stack it on the tray, dispense the appropriate sauces. So the only things we're ever going to have to make are these two orders, is that right? And they both always get all three sauces. It seems like. So we're going to need a scanner really early on, because we have to know what's coming out of here before we make basically any decisions about the dough, because the dough may have to get brutalized a little bit. So we're gonna need a fryer. Ah, shoot. Don't right click. That's bad. All right. Right, both things have to go into the fryer. Yeah. So it's like, oops, not that. We sense the thing. This. Can I do, like, no, I can't feed into the side of that. Okay. The sorter. I guess point it downward. It doesn't really matter. My goal here is to send the bread down if it needs to be docked, or right otherwise. And if it gets sent down, then it gets routed back into the thing here. And then we have to set up the situation with this thing, which is going to involve just like a normal counter, right? Hold on, what do we got up here? Plays back a pre-programmed sequence of output signals after the start input is activated. Resets when the end of the sequence is reached or the stop input is activated. I'm trying to think of, like, would that be better? I don't think so. Oh, wait, hold on. I don't want the box to go through the fryer. What am I doing here? I need to move the whole machine over. Because this actually needs to be here. Then our stacker can go here. And then we can do whatever it is we gotta do with the sauces. Yeah, and this might involve some looping behavior. In fact, it's definitely going to involve some looping behavior. I think we're gonna need another sorter here, sorter B. Damn it, I keep trying to drag directionally the way that you turn the normal belts. Okay, so we have a counter. We want the counter to get set to 2 at the beginning of each cycle, and then decrement when a sauce is placed, decrement when a sauce is placed. If the counter's at 0, send the thing forward, right? There's a lot of different events that we could use to set the counter's initial value. I guess it doesn't matter terribly right now. We don't have to think about that very much right now. Let's just put these together. Those two things go together. Okay. Wait, what thing is this? I actually have no idea. Okay. So this is the fryer, the sorter, the stacker. This is the docker. It has an input and no outputs. What is even the point? How does the docker work? Create small holes, right? I don't know what this is actually for. Is it not just gonna roll right through? I guess this is an input. Why would we need an input for this machine? It seems like it just does one thing. Okay, I guess we have to test it. Let's test it. So how much of the puzzle do I have to set up in order to do that? Actually, quite a bit of it, I think. Because what if the other thing comes through first? And in fact, we know the other thing's coming through first. So when we scan, I need the other sorter here. Okay. When we scan, Puri is the one that goes... Okay, Puri is the one that doesn't get docked. So if Puri, from this thing's perspective, that's send left. If Popti, send through. This is the wrong sorter. Sorry. Ah, shit. I right-clicked. I have got to stop doing that. There we go. This is the sorter that goes at the counter. This is the sorter that goes up here. If Puri left, if Popti through. Okay. So that launches. I guess this sense is an okay place to set the counter. All right, we do the initial +2 here. And then no, wait, this doesn't work though because I need to give it a signal. Right, it needs to output to the right when it senses unless counter. So do I need a multi-mixer here? I don't know how that's gonna work. Okay, the stacker doesn't need to do anything except stack and eject. We can just single loop that. The fryer also just does sense and eject. Those are really easy. Tomato, mint, and yogurt. Really? I wouldn't think that mint would go with tomato. I don't really like mint on stuff in general though. Like I like mint a lot by itself, but I don't even like mint in chocolate, so I might not be the target audience for this particular dish. Okay, let me walk this. I need to see it actually happen. So it senses that what we need here is a Puri. Oh, right, I have to tell the bread to dispense. There we go. That's what that is. It's the bread dispenser. Oh, does it have to sit in the... Yeah. There's little markers above it. It has to sit in the fryer for a couple of cycles. Okay, well... So we're gonna need a counter for that. Fryer sense. I guess upon scan, we can do the initial set. When 0 eject, right? Is that, did I fence post that correctly? No, it needs to sit one more cycle. The initial value has to be 2. Okay, boss. And then it catches up with the stacker. I guess the stacker could be here. I could buy myself a little bit of space. Yeah, so right now, there's nothing actually pinging sorter B's export. We're getting, like, let me hit stop here. So on 0, we want to fire it through, right? But the problem is that we're not going to actually ever get it to do anything else. It decrements a couple of times, it sends the thing through with no sauces. Okay. How do I make it actually fire left, or right, rather, in this case, when the value isn't 0? I do need it to bump. Here's a question. If I do this, is it always going to shift it to the left? Or the 0 won't take precedence, right? I'm very curious what the machine will do in this state, because my understanding is that we will get it to swap. I'm not actually putting the sauces on it in any way. Don't worry about that right now. So this should push it left. Oh, right. Left isn't even the right. I said out loud that it needed to go to the right, and then I just... Sorry. All right, so we do that. Drop this here. So it'll push it again, and then this is where I'm really curious what will happen. So it reads both the 0 and the sense at the same time, but the through output is above the right output. Okay, it just breaks if you send it 2 outputs at the same time. Good, that's good error handling. I'm overjoyed. So here's what I want to do. I want to move this to here. I want to move this up to here. No, I don't. I want to keep this right here. I want to move this like that. No, I need more room. Here's what we're going to do. We're swap this around. Because what I probably want to do here is just throw another scanner down and just have it, if the thing scans, sauces, right? So actually, this is where the sequencer might be reasonable then. When this thing scans, how do I program? Okay, cool. I see. Okay, so when you scan, but it's going to play the whole sequence, right? Let me see if I'm understanding this right. So I'm going to connect these to here. And we're gonna do like this. Does it fire each time it gets a start? Or does it, when I hit start, does it just play them 1, 2, 3? I think it's the latter, and that means that I'm actually going to have to time the belt, which is weird and kind of fun, honestly. So let's get to that part of the process. Okay, so the scan happens, sequencer fires. Sequencer fires on the next cycle. Okay. Here. We'll do that. So we can change some stuff here if the only way that this works is timing. Okay, so fires, but then it's gonna fire again. Okay. So we have to time the belt then. If I run it like this, it'll need to fire every 4 cycles. And I don't think that we're going to be able to... 1, 2... Oh, no, there's enough space in here. So that should work, right? Oh, shoot, I didn't rewire this. What a klutz. What a maroon. All right, do the thing. We're getting pieces of this functional. Bit by bit, it becomes a functional machine. Rock. I'm so happy with that. Okay, yep, and then the machine breaks. But this is good. So here's another question. Can I... How expensive are these machines? The scanner's 20,000, but a multi-mixer's only 1,000. Okay. Kill this scanner. Kill this wire. It sets the initial state here, but it also starts this thing at that scan point. No, shoot, that won't work. I was gonna say, like, I was thinking that it would become active when the bread crosses here, because we could just add a couple of cycles to the beginning, right? Does this game support Control Z? Oh, it does. Rock. Okay. Because anything we can do to remove a physical machine and replace it with a bit of digital logic is going to save us money and improve our score. So that's a thing worth doing once I actually have this sorted. Okay, so the problem is just this. So I might need to figure out how to actually use the AND multi-mixer. The enable output must be active for the outputs to activate. Okay, so how do I produce the right signals here? This is a bit of basic logic that I'm just, in order to play this, I'm going to have this set in my head, right? Is that the problem is that this is an output or don't output machine, but what I need is an output of one thing in one case and an output a different thing in a different case machine, which we're going to have to construct from the basic components that we have here. And it's been it's been such a long time since I did any circuit design. Y'all, I'm old as fuck. I don't know if you knew that. Let me put this down here just for clarity. So when the 0 is active, what I want is some version of, like, when you sense and 0 is active, go through. Right? Okay, so on sense, do decrement, check this. But how do we make it go left if not this? We don't have the kind of logic machine you would use for that, simply. I could use the sequencer. So the sequencer is a timer, effectively. I could use the sequencer to fire a thing one cycle later. That's real hacky. It's right. It needs to go right. Yeah. So right, we do this. That's gonna fuck up my counts. Also, this really shouldn't be here just for the sake of being able to read the sequence. That's definitely better. Okay. So an extra signal firing won't hurt anybody. So can it be here? This feels like a really hacky way to do this, but I don't actually see another way to do it with these tools. Okay. Jesus Christ. Okay. Okay, hold on a second. I got lost in the sauce there a little bit. All right, thing goes on tray. Cool. Scan fires, causing sauce stuff. The sauce timers are all fucked right now because I've added a cycle here. Don't worry about it. So, we have a sense. The sense decrements the counter by 1 while also checking this multi-mixer. This multi-mixer doesn't fire, so the through command doesn't occur, but it does start the sequencer. The sequencer goes deadbeat, hit here. Oh, right, things are fucked because, so now the sequencer's about to fire, push you to the left. I forgot there's a delay on the sequencer. We're also going to have to, the dish is going to be sitting on the sensor for longer, so I have to increase this. I'm adding a cycle per rotation, so I want this to be 5 now. I think. Okay. The sequencer starts. Sequencer reads its first input, pushes the thing to the right because I am bad at video games and I put the wrong damn thing in. And I think we have to add... I think we have to retime the sequencer in this way. Okay, sauce in, start the sequencer, sequencer fires, pushes the thing out. Counters at 3, which is the value that we want to see. This will decrement the counter to 1. Oh, the sequencer has to be stopped. Resets when the end of the sequence is reached or the stop input is activated. Right. So I'm gonna real quick throw another multi-mixer on here. Do a B afterward. Oh, I don't need a multi-mixer for this. I can just run that line directly. Yeah. This is not how you're supposed to use a sequencer, I don't think. Whatever. If it functions, it functions, right? I'm gonna get embarrassed on the score thing. That happens. Okay, so we reset the sequence. Sauce, check. Push. Reset the sequence. Last sauce. Scan. 0. Shit. It takes... I want this to be a 4. That's right. Because I don't want it to do a full third cycle. It has to do a half cycle the third time. I think that's it, though. I think this is actually going to do it. There's definitely optimizations available here. I could figure some stuff out, I'm sure. Okay, that's a win. Counter gets reset. We put out the other order. It gets docked, it gets fried. This part of the process just works. There's no logic involved. It's all belts. Belts is easy. I'm so glad that I don't have to work the position of the sauce head. It just does what it's supposed to do. Well, there you go. Here's the thing. I'm actually extremely bad at puzzles. Other people figured out how to use the tools correctly. Glitter Death gives it 5 stars. It says, these have to be the most complex flavors they were able to achieve with their technology level. How did they do it? Tomato and mint. Theo Thurman says, 4 stars. Good if you like your food to have a lot of tastes in it. Shanagon72, also 4 stars. Everybody loves it. You can't be a human being if you don't eat food, my auntie said. So I came here and ate it. It's fine. But still, I don't see why I need food to be a human being. And also, what's so great about being a human being anyway? This is a bad machine. I'm going to record a GIF of this machine. It's interesting that it doesn't show you the thing playing while it records. Do I have to go back and run it? Is that how this works? Because generally in these Zachtronics games, when your machine is running and you are making a GIF of the operation of the machine, it does just run it one more time on the screen while it's making the recording. This is so complicated. Would I save a cycle per object if I just moved the entire assembly? Like if we moved this entire assembly to the right, we reversed the function of this thing, we put the Docker there. Yeah, I think we would save 1 cycle per... We would save 1 cycle per pair of goods. Because when the docked bread comes out, it goes 1, 2, 3. Because this has to be the junction. So the docked bread goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then is in the machine. And the other bread goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then is in the machine. Yeah, I think that's 1 point shorter. Well, whatever. It doesn't matter that much. I'm gonna go ahead and take us out of here, and that's gonna be it for us. Actually, hold on a second. Wait a second. Undo that. This is just text. Let's look at the text. Greetings, operator. Interest in 20th century human life continues to grow, and the 20th century experience is receiving more visitors than ever. As part of this effort, we're meeting our visitors' demands by adding even more 20th century style cuisines to choose from in the food court. Sometimes it's difficult for people to remember what was actually available in the 20th century. No meta-satiety, nutrient sublimation, etc. Satiety might be, because it's the same root as satiation. I don't know. Historical realities like this may seem like a letdown at first, but it is our belief that diners will soon find there is still much to admire about 20th century food, no matter how crude and disgusting it may seem at first. Thanks, the management. I am curious. We're going to look. A type of iced cream that became popular throughout dining establishments of the time period, soft serve, was an inexpensive treat the whole pod could enjoy. Note this product is served cold at period-accurate temperature of Is that 0 Kelvin? Okay. What do they have you? Oh, Lord. Just dispense ice cream. What's wrong with you? Dispense ice cream twice for small, thrice for medium, 4 times. 4 times for large. Is there a quadrice, maybe? Tetrice? I don't know. Anyway, we're not doing this puzzle, obviously. That's going to be it for us for today. Thank you all so much for watching me do kind of an okay job with these puzzles while having, frankly, just a phenomenal time. I have really enjoyed this. When you come back next time tomorrow, there's definitely one more episode of this series. I'm not sure if we'll keep going after that, because I don't want to I don't know if I want to do all of the puzzles on camera, or if I just want to give you all, enough of a taste of what this thing is that if you want to go buy it yourself, or I don't know. I'll have a think on it. But there's definitely one coming out tomorrow, so come back for that, and we'll see you then.